Hello, my name is Brandon Devenish from Pegasaas.com, and today I'm going to do a recap of the last 4 months, more or less. It's January 31st, 2020, and coming out next week is version 3.0 of Pegasaas Accelerator. Now, I anticipated that this was going to be a 2-month, maybe 3-month upgrade. It's been 4 months. When I made the plan for what I wanted to include in this particular version, the list was much shorter. I wrote up the list here just to give you an idea here, but the major motivating factor for this particular version was that we were going to be moving to a per page subscription model, and I wanted to build in some foundation optimizations that were available for pages that were not using the full premium API optimization set. So in short, you might have optimized your core pages, but all the rest of the pages in your site, it would be nice if they still had coverage as well. So we've included a bunch of foundation stuff, but the stuff that really makes your site super fast is available through the API because it requires additional computations. It requires additional analytics, it requires additional modules on the server, and they run at optimization time, and then the optimization is returned to the plugin. So we actually now have, in version 3, a hybrid system. It's like version 1 and like version 2, except it's the best of both worlds, and I'm really excited about it. I also spent about a month on the interface. That was a little longer than I wanted to, but it's a really sexy looking interface, in my opinion. I'm really quite proud of it. It has come a long way. I actually stumbled onto somebody's site, into the dashboard of the Pegasaas Accelerator on somebody's site that was running version 1.7. And I laughed out loud because I forgot how it had looked, and it was quite retro, I guess. Considering where it is at now. So if you're running Pegasaas Accelerator 2 and when you go to upgrade, I hope that you're pleasantly surprised. The interface has been revamped, how the data loads in the interface, it's all in background. It's very smooth when you go to click on items and say request an optimization. Icons change without having to refresh the page. Everything happens in the background. And like I said, I think it's particularly sexy looking. I spent a good deal of time retweaking the settings page. That as well is extremely awesome. A settings page doesn't need to be awesome. Ours is. So I'm really hoping that you enjoy that as well. But the cool aspects of version 3 is that it supports a bunch of new incredible features. Features that I'm vibrating about. They're so cool. All right, I'm going to geek out here for a little bit. We get people telling us all the time that they can't believe how much faster their website is. They've tried other plugins, tried patching together other plugins, and it just has never been successful until they find Pegasaas. And they're happy that they can finally get from 5 out of 100 for page speed score up to 55 out of 100, because if you're that low, chances are you're not going to be getting in the 90s. We're working on that. Usually the reason that pages are scored so low is because their page load time is so high as for all the assets they have on their page, all 65,000 JavaScript files and a bunch of images and whatnot. But it's also the computation of all the JavaScript in the page. Now we've got some really innovative new things in version 3 that we'll be able to take some of those sites that were sitting at about 75 out of 100 and getting them to about 90. A lot of it has to do with lazy loading. And actually in the news, just yesterday, WordPress is announcing they are including the loading equals lazy for all of their images and iframes, I believe. Maybe it's just images. Which is something that Chromium-based browsers support. I think this is just ridiculous. They said, oh, now you don't need a plugin to do the JavaScript lazy loading. And I think that's just baloney, because that's only 65% of the browser market. So the other 35% of the browsers, sorry, you have to have a slow loading page. Eventually, Firefox will add in support for loading equals lazy, but that's just images and maybe iframes. There are a whole bunch of other types of resources that can be lazy loaded, but it's technically difficult. Well, we have that capability. I've spent the time, I've sat down, I've figured out how to apply lazy loading for scripts, how to apply lazy loading for inline script blocks, how to apply lazy loading for all sorts of things that slow down your page. That is the core set of features that I've added in for this next version. For example, third-party vendor scripts. You might see this if you ever run a page speed insight scan, and it says, oh, beware of these third-party vendor scripts that are slowing down the main thread. If you ever seen that, yeah, okay, well, whatever. Oh, yeah, it's got my Google Tag Manager, my Google Analytics. Oh, I've got Hotjar, I've got Yandex, I've got HubSpot, I've got WordPress site stats, WordPress emoji, I've got, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And if you are doing marketing with your site, often there's additional analytics that are in the page that try to get an idea of where your clicks are coming from and where they're going to, if there's any click fraud. There's a bunch of them. And every one of those scripts adds a little bit of time to how long it takes for the CPU to become idle. Not only that, a bunch of them will load in secondary scripts that take even longer to load. And your page speed score and how quickly your page is perceived to be loaded when it loads up in a mobile browser, if that stuff can be delayed even just a little bit without impacting the analytics. Now here's the trick, is you got to do it without impacting the capturing of that data. Well, that can make the web page load so much faster. Guess what's coming in version 3? So we did that. Another major aspect of version 3 that's coming next week is staging mode. So when you go to install the plugin, or even if you've already got it installed and you're just updating, there will be a staging mode. If you're installing it, it'll ask you, do you want to go into staging mode first? You can always go to live mode or staging mode or diagnostic mode. But staging mode is where pages are not public, the optimizations are not public unless you explicitly select, make this page live, make this optimization live, and you'll be able to preview those optimizations before sending them live. So if you have a large production site and you haven't cloned it and you're not doing your testing, but you want to see what this looks like, but you don't necessarily want to go live, you can download this, install it, go staging mode, say I want to optimize the home page, but just in staging mode, and you can test it out and see, does it make my page look great? Or is there some sort of JavaScript that is not loaded properly? And if so, maybe initiate a support ticket to me and I can take a look at it. But it's the ability to go and try it out without disrupting the rest of your website. So staging mode, incredibly cool feature. I'm really excited about it. I think if you're one of those folks that want to use something like that, I think you're going to be really happy with it. What else have we got? I've added in a much needed feature to pick up stale requests. Occasionally the API will send a request back to the plugin, and the plugin will sort of receive it, but that file never gets, the temporary cache never gets deleted off the server, or for whatever reason, something just didn't go right. And so we have something called pick up stale requests. We'd had it before for different types of installations. We now have it in an expanded form, which should get rid of pretty much all the problems that we've experienced before in the last couple months with stale requests. Happens in once every, I would say probably once every 500 requests, we might get a stale one. So this little update will fix that. I've added in CDN Cache Busting. So that means that it will add a query string to any of the resource CSS or JavaScript resources. Say you're working on your site and you make changes to your CSS files regularly, and use the CDN aspect of Pegasus. By enabling CDN Cache Busting, every time you rebuild your page, it would then basically be requesting an updated version of that CSS file. Added in iframe exclusions for lazy loading of iframes. So you can now say turn on lazy loading iframes and specify a certain iframe that you don't want lazy loaded. We added in Vimeo lazy loading, Facebook feed lazy loading. We added a new feature, premium feature, for those that want to retain what's called the metadata in images. When they go through our optimization system, typically speaking, you would want to make those images as small as possible, right? There are some users out there, some installations that want to retain the metadata because they have geolocation data in it, which might be important for listings in, say, Google Maps or something like that. So we had a request to retain that information. So there's a new feature where you can select to retain that metadata in images that are optimized. And we updated also another aspect of the system, which is called deferral of render blocking JavaScript. And it's actually not even the render blocking, it's the inline script blocks. And so we've updated the system of how the system processes that. It actually turns out that it's much faster now. It was unexpected. I ran a test and the site was running at 75, and then I applied this and it became running at 95 out of 100. Now, it won't be like that for every site, but there are some little surprises in store for you when you go to do this upgrade next week. And that is pretty much it, I think. I'm sure there's a couple other things. Updated the cache clearing mechanism so that it runs in the background. So the sites that have 1,000 pages or 5,000 pages, it's not sitting there spinning, timing out. It'll actually do clear the cache in chunks. So that just happens in the background. So there you go. That's a recap of what I have been working on with Pegasus over the last 4 months. And so there's just a little bit of work yet to do next week in testing out with different subscription types, the old type, the new type, the guest API, and just making sure that it works as I've designed it to work, because there's a lot of different aspects of this that we added in. We just want to make sure that it's working properly. And then I'll be doing up some videos, explanation videos for the different aspects of the settings page, because that has changed as well. And I'm going to be adding in some explanations of each of the functions in human terms. What does it mean when I say don't change this feature and what can go wrong? Because sometimes it's a little bit easier to get it face to face rather than trying to read words that you glaze over top of. If I say, hey, watch that video there, it'll explain it. Hopefully it'll save a little bit of time for everybody. Anyways, thanks so much for joining me. I hope to do more of these recaps in the months ahead. I'll be honest, when Friday hits, which is when I normally do these recaps, I am usually so still trying to squeeze in the last couple of updates that I before I realize that it's 5 p.m. and I need to cut out for the day and for the weekend. Anyways, again, thank you so much. If you have any comments or questions, please by all means leave them below. If you haven't subscribed to this channel and want to keep up with what's been going on, what I've been working on with Pegasus Accelerator, please hit the subscribe button, or follow or like, or whichever platform you're using. Thanks again. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.